Hi, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Driskell Debrief. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you believe that we're only 2 weeks away from November 5th, which is Election Day? And all I want to know is how do I both wish that this day were already here and that I also had another month? It is a very weird feeling to feel like I have both too much time and not enough time between now and this election. And I think part of it is because there's so much on the line. But of course, let me check in with you all. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Please feel free to get busy in the chat. You know, we've had a couple of hurricanes, we've had a lot of life happening, and I hope that you and your loved ones are okay. And I treasure this time together. So let's go ahead and get into it because we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We have an incredibly dear, darling, amazing special guest, and I want to preserve most of the time for that. But just to let you know a little bit of what we've been up to, we have been out in the community really strong since the hurricanes, but also it's part of what we do in terms of constituent services. So our team attended the University Area CDC Partners Coalition gathering. The university area being one of the most special parts of the district, we refer to it as Uptown. There are folks who are working there, like Sarah Combs, who's a CEO of the UA CDC. You've got the faculty and staff at Mort Elementary. You've got business owners who are working so hard to really uplift the uptown area and give people a lot of hope there. So it's always our pleasure to participate in any way that we can. Our legislative staff, Team Fentress, drove around Thonotosassa to assess hurricane damage. We visited a library and McDonald Elementary School to check in. We want to make sure that folks out in Thonotosassa and in the eastern part of the district are getting what they need. We also attended a ribbon cutting and a school opening for Victory High School, which, check this out, it's the first school for students in recovery in Hillsborough County, which is quite amazing because students who are suffering from substance abuse should have every opportunity to live their best life and to get a good education. And I think it's just wonderfully amazing that the county now has a school dedicated to these young people to help them live their fullest and their best lives. We've got Councilman Luis Vieira, who's a dear friend of mine and who held a community meeting tonight, actually, with Mayor Castor and FEMA. And I'll let you know, I had my legislative staff go there because you can probably hear it in my voice, guys. I'm under the weather. So, in an effort to not get anybody sick, I did not go tonight, but our team was represented there. And we want to make sure that with some of the unprecedented flooding that happened in North Hillsborough County and in North Tampa, that the community gets the answers that it needs. If you dealt with unprecedented flooding, would you please drop us a line and let us know? Because we'd be happy to look into that for you and with you and partner with our counterparts in local and county government to make sure that we're getting any stormwater issues fixed and so that we can keep you and your families healthy, prosperous, and safe. We also wanted to let you know that the Hillsborough County property appraiser and the tax collector, so that would be Bob Enriquez and Nancy Milan, held an event recently where our team was delighted to support. And they announced that the property appraiser's office for the county is offering tax relief, including delaying property tax notices being sent out until November 25th. And for homeowners with properties that are deemed uninhabitable for more than 30 days, you might be eligible for a partial property tax refund. So please know that property tax refund applications are due on March 1st. There are several other benefits that are being considered. I know Bob Enriquez, I know Nancy Milan, I know that they care greatly for the community. And above all else, they want to make sure that people are safe. They want you to be able to live in your homes, but they want to be there for you in this time of need with this hurricane. So you can visit their websites. You can also email stormdamage at hcpafl.org. That's stormdamage at hcpafl.org, or you can call their property damage hotline, which is 813-272-6332. And our tax collector, Nancy Milan, is also extending the 4% early payment discount period on taxes through December 31st, 2024. Again, just trying to help neighbors who are in need, in particular after suffering from the hurricane. So I hope y'all are all right. My family and I are doing well. Like I mentioned, we suffered a little bit of property damage, But listen, being safe is the most important thing. We went without power for several days. I know that many of you did too. But again, just staying safe is the most important thing. So I hope you all are well. Um, so yeah, you'll have to forgive me. I mentioned that I am feeling a little under the weather, so you can hear it in my voice. I'm not actually trying to sound sultry, but I've got my tea here and I wanted to show you. I wanted to break out this mug. I feel like I've shown this to y'all before. It's the Believe in Change mug, folks. Believe in change, and I believe in change. This is part of what is keeping me going, is the belief that on November 5th, not just Floridians, but Americans around our country will make their voices heard, that they will vote for the positive change that they want to see in our nation, that they will reflect on the history of our nation, understanding that we're about to celebrate our 250th birthday as a country in 2026, and use that as a reflection point of who do we want to be? Who do we want to be our president? Who do we want to be leading our states? Who do we want to lead our local governments? Who do we want to be the folks who are moving America forward into a new chapter? And frankly, what are the policies that we want? What type of country do we want to be? Do we want more freedom or do we want less? And speaking of freedom, we know that abortion is on the ballot in Florida. It's on the ballot in so many different places. And in many ways, I think it's on the ballot nationwide, given the candidates that we have to choose from in this year's election. So I wanted to have a conversation tonight with an advocate who is just one of the most amazing young women I've ever met, and it's Hadley Duvall. I met Hadley at an event in Boston this May, and she just graduated from Midway University. And I was just completely taken with her quiet confidence and her ability to share her own story, which is so powerful, and to share it from such an authentic place and a vulnerable place, and it's incredibly moving. Hadley is a Kentucky native. She's a reproductive rights advocate and a surrogate for the Harris Walls campaign, appearing in ads for the campaign and speaking out against extremist abortion bans, frankly, like the one that we have in Florida. She recently spoke at the DNC, and she has frequently been on the campaign trail with the Reproductive Freedom Bus Tour. Just by speaking with Hadley a few minutes before we started, I know that's an understatement to say that she has frequently been on the campaign trail. Let me tell you, Homegirl is working hard for democracy. And Hadley also was recently named as a Glamour Woman of the Year. Please join me in inviting to the stage Hadley Duvall. Hi, Hadley.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. It's so good to have you on tonight.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
So let's just get into it. Could you please share a little bit about your personal story with abortion?
So, I was abused starting at the age of 5 by my stepfather at the time. And when I was 12, I found out that he impregnated me. The first thing he told me was, "You have options." And at 12, I really had no idea what that meant. But I knew that I would be okay. And I knew that my story wasn't over. I had control and I miscarried. So I didn't ever really have to take that control. But I knew that I had it. And that's what I held on to for many weeks. So when Roe was overturned and a lot of girls lost that opportunity of to have those options, to know of those options, it really broke my heart because I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And every time I hear you tell that story, it tugs at my heartstrings. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. And so, what you talked about Roe being the impetus, but what made you feel like you should step up and share your story in such a widespread way and on such a national level? What has driven you to become such an advocate for this issue? Because it's a very brave step to take.
I had made a Facebook post when Roe was overturned. Just really more so for my friends and family who were celebrating the overturn on social media.
Mhm.
And I just let them know that they didn't understand that there was a big gray area that necessarily couldn't be covered in just a sentence. And with that, about a year later, I was contacted by Kentucky's governor, Governor Beshear. He was up for reelection, and he was willing to run his race on reproductive rights. And I knew that if a straight white male from a place as red as Kentucky could do it, then I could too. And if little me could endure what she endured, then I could do this. So, it was about a 4-minute conversation I had with somebody from Governor Beshear's office, and I had agreed to do an ad for him and had set up the time and place, knew when we were going to be recording, didn't tell any of my family members beforehand, didn't even have to think about it. I knew exactly, if not me, then who. I had to do it.
Mhm.
And that's honestly what has led me to be here today.
Well, that ad, which I've seen, and it's incredibly powerful, it's widely credited with helping him win that election, by the way, by helping Governor Beshear and his Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman win.
They definitely, had the willpower it took to get there. And if they would have never been able to say, I will run on something so controversial, something that is, not really talked about in places like Kentucky, it really brought that conversation right into people's living room. And, I have so much respect for them, and I always will. And they have taken care of me every step of the way since day one. And it's way more than politics for them. And I'm just so grateful that they were the ones who got me started and were willing to do that, because they deserve the win. And I was just grateful to be able to be a part of it.
Well, we're so grateful to you. And I love what you just said, that it goes beyond politics. It's beyond politics. And part of our theory of the case, part of the reason why we even do these live streams, honestly, Hadley, is we started, as I would talk to people across the state, it would occur to me that people have more in common than they have things that are differences. They don't
Yes,
necessarily realize it, right? And if you can get people to share their stories, they can start to understand what they have in common. In Florida, we've got this 6-week abortion ban, and it doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an NPA. If you are a person seeking that as healthcare, you are cut off at 6 weeks, and many people don't even know it yet. I would imagine that by telling your story, you probably have liberated other people to share theirs and to feel more comfortable with sharing their stories. Do you find that as you travel the country that people are sharing their stories with you?
absolutely. I find that in person at events, in my direct messages, there is not a day, honestly, that I haven't gotten a new story. And it's so sad that there are so many to be heard, but I'm also so honored to be a safe space and to be here to hear them. Because, there was a time where I wasn't sure if I would ever advocate or if I would ever speak about what I'd been through. I didn't go to school planning to step into advocacy. It kind of called on me, literally, and I answered the phone and said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And, if I never would have gotten that, maybe there's somebody who wouldn't have opened up about their story. And that's what it means more to me. It's beyond politics. It's for somebody to find their voice, because I do remember searching for somebody like myself. And maybe if I would have seen somebody on TV talking about this, I would have found my voice a lot sooner. So I just hope that people know that they can be empowered no matter what they register as, no matter if they've never voted in their life. You don't have to be political to care about reproductive rights. You don't have to be a woman to care about reproductive rights. You don't have to be pregnant to care about reproductive rights. And you don't ever have to get an abortion to care about reproductive rights, because it is simply something you can never understand until it's right there in the exam room with you.
Yeah, 100%. And I just really appreciate your story too, because, we had back to back abortion bans in Florida The first one was at 15 weeks, a ban at 15 weeks, and it provided no exception for rape or incest or human trafficking. And
It
now
was,
this,
yes, that one was almost identical to Kentucky's.
oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
I found that a lot of these policies that are restrictive of freedom tend to circulate in the states. Like you see it
In in
more.
the red ones. Yeah, absolutely. And that's so sad to know because it was never like that before. Growing up, I knew politics to be for grown people, not because it was hateful, but because you had to be educated.
Hmm.
And now people just turn away from it because it's so hateful. And it just, you should be able to know that your neighbor doesn't vote the same way as you and you can still be neighbors and be friends and wave at each other. But you shouldn't be afraid of, telling people, this is my story. This is why you should vote for, reproductive freedom. And politicians shouldn't have it in their hands, but unfortunately they do.
Yeah. And there seems to be, to me, to be something so backwards about that. And I wish that the people knew truly that the power actually is in their hands. And it's like, don't let politicians take it from you. There is nothing that a politician is more afraid of than an educated voter, an informed voter who's not afraid to use their vote, right? Like this is the reason,
Absolutely.
right? Like all the ads, all the things that are happening, and you've got candidates who fight so hard to win this job and then to keep it once they're elected. I mean, for me, it's about the work. I absolutely love what I'm able to do in serving the community. But it's like, make no mistake, it's the people who have the power. Every sort of power that we have as a government derives from the people. And I wish that, I don't know. I feel like it's something that is a concept that's just kind of lost these days. And I want the voters to understand and to vote and to make their voices heard and to exercise that right, because these decisions should not be in the hands of politicians. I don't want politicians overlooking my shoulder in the exam room trying to tell me what to do with my life, right?
Absolutely. And it's so important for people to realize that their vote, no matter what state you live in, no matter if it's a swing state or not, up and down the ballot matters.
Hmm.
It absolutely matters because that is where a lot of the power lies, and a lot of people don't realize that. So they say, "Oh, I'm not in a swing state, so I'm not going to vote. My vote doesn't matter." But it does.
Hmm.
It absolutely, and I used to be that person, so that's why I really understand. I get it, but you can't wait until politics intersects with your life to care about it, because it's going to. And you can either be ready to grab it and face it head on, or you can let it knock you down. And I've chosen to continue on, luckily with amazing support. But it hasn't been easy, and I don't want people to think that they have to stand up on a stage and tell their story nationally to have their vote matter or to have their voice matter. You can go walk into a ballot box and reclaim your freedom and
Hmm.
not tell anybody who you voted for, and nobody ever has to know. And that's, you know that, and you are empowered by that, and that can be empowering for some people just as much as finding your voice for the first time. I saw there was an 81-year-old woman, I want to say, who had voted for the first time because her husband felt as if she didn't deserve to vote, and he passed away last year, so she got to vote. And I was like in tears. And that's just, nobody should have to keep their voice in that long, let alone their vote. It's a privilege to be voting.
It is absolutely a privilege. Like, let's just go ahead and take it there. I love that we've got an 81-year-old who's voting for the first time, and that makes me very sad too. I'm probably gonna have to sit with that for a little bit after
I
this.
will find it and send it to you.
Yeah, please
I,
do.
I will.
But let's talk about young people too.
Yes.
Young people, my young people out there, listen, I feel like the world is your oyster. And if young people show up in this election in a big way, you could completely change politics overnight. What do you say to young people who are out there and maybe on the fence about getting involved, maybe on the fence about voting?
This is our time. There might not be another one for a while. We are being heard at a level like truly never before. There are so many brilliant individuals in Gen Z. And, I know it always hasn't been a very welcoming place to be a young person and to be in the political field. But, to all the young people out there, please do not be afraid of the people in the suits. We belong at those tables, we belong in those conversations. This is our future, and we're going to be the ones paying the consequences. So we have to get out there and truly speak for what we want. There is not a better, like, you can post on social media all day. Don't get me wrong. I love social media. I stay on it. But if you don't go vote, it's voting for the less than. That's exactly what you're doing, because we do have so much power and we have the opportunity to change every election every time. But this one, there's a lot at stake, and we have to show up and show out and show people that they need to stop doubting Gen Z, because we are educated and we know what we're talking about. And you know what they say, you F around and find out. So Gen Z really needs to be the one to bring it out and show them that that is our motto. And I'm hoping that we do. And I have a lot of faith in my generation. I really think that we will do it.
So I love that we're not the only ones who say that in Florida. We're not, that's not just a Florida thing.
It might be a southern thing, but we have it up here too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like you can't wait for politics to intersect with your life. You gotta step up. And the decision to not vote is also a choice, right? Like you're basically just letting other people make the decisions for
Absolutely.
you.
And it's such a
Mhm.
privilege to feel like you don't need to vote. To feel like you don't have something riding on this election with
Mm.
all that's at stake. All the policies, all the projects that are out there. With all that's at stake, you feel as if there's not one thing that's so important to you that's at risk,
Mhm.
that you don't have to go vote. That's a privilege, and you are a blessed human being.
You know, I heard somebody say recently, they were explaining to me why they don't vote. And I worked very hard to get this young man to vote, not just to vote for me or vote Democrat, but just to vote. He
Just
just
to
wants
vote.
to vote. And so we had a conversation really just about civics and, what he learned in school, what he didn't learn in school. I'm like, like how did the system fail you? Like we got to fix this. And it was interesting. He said something to the effect that not much in his life has ever changed. And I thought about that and I thought, but I know of policies that have changed people's lives dramatically for good, for worse. But then there's also something that we're enjoying in America, which is known as like peace. Like we have peace, like we have public education, like we have a great government, a great system. We got this democratic republic that we exist in. And gratefully, a lot of times I can understand how things might feel kind of smooth and even because the government keeps running, the state governments keep running, things are running like clockwork. But that is a privilege, right? Like that occurs because we elect people who are doing their jobs, maybe not always in the policies that we like. And anyway, I had this conversation with him though about this particular election and why I think there is so much at stake because we've got, one candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris, who wants us to turn a new page and to enter into a new chapter in American history and move us forward. And another, and former President Donald Trump, who I'm afraid wants to just completely wreck things and change it from this kind of like nice kind of even flow that we've been experiencing and just totally disrupt our democracy and our system. And so it was kind of interesting to me. It's like not much changes. I'm like, yes and no. And you got to be careful because if you like stability, then please understand that there's a very real choice that you're going to have to make on or before November 5th.
Oh, absolutely. And That is such a privilege to feel as if, oh, nothing changes. Because for somebody in their life, it does, but maybe not for them directly. And that is, a sign of people are, if you don't watch the news and you aren't on social media and you aren't staying up with, new political things, then it's very easy to feel like, oh yeah, everything's fine.
Mhm.
Politics sucks, the government sucks, at what everybody says, but you don't really even know what's going on. I have been there, and I have been naive to say, oh yeah, it doesn't really affect me. I don't really care who's in office. Like, it doesn't, whatever. Yeah, it does. It does affect you. And, you can't wait until it does to feel like you should have a say so in it.
100%. And so let's talk a little bit more about these abortion bans. So we have one in Florida, I was mentioning. It's at 6 weeks, which is before most people even know that they are pregnant, before a woman would even know to go and seek care. But we have a chance to fix that this November. In Florida, we have Amendment 4, which would basically limit governmental interference in those private healthcare decisions. So could you talk, I mean, I've been a big proponent of Amendment 4. You've seen the perspective of Kentucky and other states. Why do you think it's important for folks to come out and make their voices heard and vote for an amendment like that? And how do you feel like that could affect the political landscape in a state like Florida?
There have been so many people in Kentucky to tell me that if abortion was on the ballot, they would vote in favor of pro choice. And, you know, it's such a privilege, honestly, to have it on your ballot, not only at the very, very top, but also somewhere on an amendment because your state is willing to at least hear you out. I know Florida's situation hasn't been ideal, and there has been some very crazy things that have gone on in the process. But there are some fierce fighters in Florida, and that's why it's on the ballot. So it's so important for people to get out there, not only for themselves, but for us in Kentucky, we don't have it on our ballot. They wouldn't hear us out. We attempted, and they stalled us. And it's so heartbreaking to know that there are people actively working so hard against something when there are so many other issues in this world and especially in this country. But to know that Floridians have an option to secure just a little bit in their state constitution, it's so important. And, we have to realize that splitting your vote between an amendment and a presidential candidate is very dangerous as well. You have to know that we are at risk of a national ban. We are at risk of that coming across the next presidential candidate's desk. And I know who will veto it because they said so in the presidential debate.
Yeah.
Like, I know exactly who will and who will protect our rights. And
Actually, let's be a little more explicit about that. You're talking about the importance of electing candidates who would also protect access to abortion, yes, and why that's important.
absolutely,
Mm.
it's important to vote for the amendment, but you have to do that and then some because there are not states out here that are safe. I think there's only 10 states where it's actually on the ballot.
Yeah. I would say that well, a couple of things. The first is that in Florida, we are fortunate that there are a few different ways to amend the Constitution, and one of them is through the ballot initiative process. I'll be honest, even in just the 6 years that I have served in the legislature, I have watched the majority in the Florida legislature, which happens to be the Republican Party at this time, take steps to make it more difficult for these ballot initiatives to pass. I think it's very dangerous because I think that is silencing the voices of Floridians and the hurdles that you have to jump through to get something like this on the ballot. I mean, they had to collect just hundreds of thousands. I think maybe they collected in the end over 1 million petitions. And that wasn't just from Democrats. It was from Democrats, from Republicans, from NPAs, from independents, from folks all across the political spectrum who felt like the legislature was not adequately and accurately representing them in terms of where they are on this issue. And so it's powerful that Floridians can make their voices heard in this way. And so just to, take a word that you've been using tonight, which is it's a privilege. It's a privilege that we get to do this and that we can move the state in a better direction, even when we have a legislature sometimes that is just wrongheaded and refuses to listen to the people, that silences and suppresses the stories of the people. That matters. And then to your second point about electing candidates who will protect abortion access, 100%. Folks, if you are a Florida voter, you've probably heard me talk quite a lot on the live stream about the importance of ending the Republican supermajority in the Florida House this fall. Hadley, we are working so hard to flip just 5 seats so that we can break the Republican supermajority. Because what happens is when there's a supermajority and a superminority, there's no real debate. In fact, the majority party can just waive the rules and silence debate. There's no real negotiation. Our government doesn't work with the push and the pull and the checks and balances that it's supposed to have. And that has led to some very extremist laws getting passed in Florida. So we are working very hard to break the supermajority, but doing so also is the best insurance policy to protect Amendment 4. If you are a voter who wants to protect Amendment 4, then make sure that you are voting for candidates who are going to vote to protect that when the legislature is in session next year and gets to pass an implementing bill that takes a look at Amendment 4 and says exactly how it will go into effect. Because it's important to have people who are going to stand up and make sure that that implementing bill does not undermine the will of the voters, which frankly is something that I've seen the majority in the legislature do. In 2018, we had a ballot initiative that gave returning citizens or those who'd been previously convicted of felonies, we restored their right to vote. And people voted for that, I think, more than any other candidate that was on the ballot. And then the legislature turned around and passed an implementing bill that completely gutted the will of the voters. It was like, nah, you got to pay your fines, your fees, you got to do this and that. And so it was never implemented in the way that the voters intended. So just wanted to echo that, the importance of voting down ballot and voting for candidates who are going to protect choice. It matters. It's not simply enough to vote for Amendment 4.
Not at all. And it's, the people deserve to know where candidates stand on that issue. It's not acceptable for candidates to not vote or not talk about that issue because we unfortunately don't get to pick and choose when to care about our reproductive freedom. Neither do they.
That's right. That's right. Well, we've talked about abortion access. We talk about voting. Let's talk about a couple of other things, Hadley. So you were saying how before we started, I think you visited every time zone in this country in the last. Like, what is life like for you right now?
It's definitely very surreal. I could not have imagined I would be doing as much traveling as I am. But I'm honestly, so happy to be out on the trail doing a little bit of social media work and a little bit of boots on the ground work. It's honestly so cool to see so many volunteers and people just want to be involved and want to come out and hear different people speak. I have been to every battleground state and spoken at different locations, different cities in every state. I have been on the Reproductive Freedom Bus Tour. I did the whole stretch of Pennsylvania. I was there for 6 days. I did a couple days in Michigan, and I did the full Arizona stretch and a couple stops in Nevada. And, that was honestly so much fun. I love going out west. There's so much excitement out there. Honestly, there is just and such a vibe of we are here and we're not playing any games. We're going to win. And it's such a refreshing feeling to be around so many strong women who are just, working just as hard as I am to elect Vice President Harris. And it's, so amazing to be a part of. I feel very blessed and very lucky. I know that it's not always easy sharing my story, but the people that I've met and the stories I've heard and the relationships and the bonds that I've formed truly is unforgettable and will go past the election And
Mhm.
I'm really excited to see what's to come, because I think that if we turn a positive page, it will continue to go in an amazing speed, not only for young people, but just for people in general. And maybe we'll see a little bit less of a division of America, because that's how it feels, riding on the reproductive freedom bus. People are honking as we go down, showing their support, taking pictures, asking us questions. And it's really refreshing that there are still some people who are open to conversate and not be rude, and maybe see where we can find some sort of common ground, because I really am about meeting people where they are. If you want to have a conversation, I will have a conversation about it. I won't argue with anybody by any means, but I'm very big on talking to undecided voters, because I've been there so many times. And I had a very political sibling growing up, and I was like, stop talking to me about politics. I just always shut it out, and I never thought I would be on the campaign trail. So I really share my experience and just try to be as authentic as possible to show everybody that they can get out here just like I am.
I love that. Actually, is that advice that you would share to folks? I know we have a lot of people who watch who are volunteers, or maybe they want to talk to the people in their lives about getting more involved in politics or voting. I mean, is that your best advice? Would you add anything else about how to talk to undecided voters?
Yeah, honestly, it's so, so, so important to meet people where they are.
Mhm.
I'm never going to come at somebody and say, well, I went through this, and, this is why you should believe it. Because everybody makes their decisions with their personal experiences. So instead of degrading somebody, I really just like to know where their thought process is, and then break it down from there. Always come with facts. I'm really, really big on don't bring it up if you're not that educated on it, because
Mm.
that's where you get yourself in trouble, and you can save yourself so much time and tongue twisting if you just don't bring up the topics that you're not very strong on.
Mhm.
And if that's something you want to get better on, then you should know how to self educate. And there are so many amazing resources that are very reliable that you should know how to use. But when you're just talking to somebody about everyday things, you don't have to pull out textbook terms. And if it's something you're passionate about, and something like, you have a story about, or something that you speak a truth about, it's very easy to genuinely conversate with people. I have flipped votes, not on purpose, but in the grocery store, on social media, a lot, of course, in a basketball gym, on vacation, in an elevator, in an Uber. It's just
Yeah.
if they ask who I'm voting for, I say with my chest, because I know why I'm voting for her. And it's very, it's not political at all. It's very personal. I know nobody can change my mind.
Mhm.
And, if I can change somebody's mind, great. If not, maybe the next conversation will. So keep having them.
I love it. I love it. I have so many takeaways from what you just said. First of all, say it with your chest. Second of all, don't be strong and wrong. That's my rule. You
Yes.
can't be strong and wrong. Can't be both at the same time, right?
Yeah.
You better be right if you're
You will
coming
be humbled very quickly.
And also, world, y'all better watch out because Hadley, you're just gonna meet her. You never know where it's gonna be. It's gonna be in line at a grocery store, at a concert, or somewhere. She's just gonna change your little heart and mind because this is what she does.
Yeah.
And recently, she was recognized. You were recognized, Hadley, I should say, by Glamour as one of its Women of the Year. Could you please tell us about that experience? And congratulations.
Thank you. Wow. Yes, that was, such an honor. I was named that with Caitlin Joshua, who is from Louisiana. Shout out to my girl, love her. Who has been through a very, traumatic story herself, and is very strong. And it was such an honor to be recognized with somebody so strong that I, look up to in this space. And I'm definitely the youngest of the storytellers. So they all, look after me as like their little sister. And it just means a lot to me. But being able to, we had a photo shoot, and it was a much needed day of just glam and fun, and not really a whole lot of politics, and not really talking about what we had been through to get there.
Yeah.
Just, being us. And it was a really amazing day. And then we had the celebration that followed up, and I met so many people. First of all, I met Beyonce.
Wait, pause.
I should have led with that.
Tell me
I should have led with that.
everything. Seriously.
So Beyonce's mom was also recognized. Yes.
Miss Tina Knowles, for those of you who don't track it, that's Miss Tina Knowles. Yeah.
And you should track it.
Yes.
So yes, she was there in support of her mom. She came in like a quiet boss queen, sat down, and of course we were like, oh, you can't just walk in a room and not see Beyonce.
Right.
So, she was leaving, and I was trying to be respectful, trying to be nice. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to put my camera up there, start taking a video. And she got in the video, and she told me congratulations. She actually did touch the shoulder. I have it on camera.
Wow.
So, yes, I will forever be honored. She listened to my speech. That was the most nerve-wracking thing. Billie Eilish was also in the crowd. Her mom was also recognized. So Billy and Phineas were there as well. And that meant a lot to me, because my ad for the Harris campaign is actually to one of her songs. So it was just, kind of like full circle. And it was just really cool to know that they also support Caitlin and I on a higher level than just, being at Glamour. Sophia Bush was there as well. And she's one of my favorite people on this earth. Love her so much. And it was just such an amazing night with so many Taraji Henson, like, oh my gosh, like so many of my idols. And I stood on stage and spoke in front of them. It is a night I will truly always cherish.
I just love that. You deserve every happiness, every happiness. And folks have different wisdom traditions. I was raised in a Christian home, and there's a verse in the Bible that it talks about how your gifts will bring you before great men. But we know that was written at a time. So before great people, right? Like before great people and great women. And this is just amazing to me. You deserve every happiness. And I just wonder if the queen, which Beyonce is queen, let's be very clear. We're talking about Queen of England. When the queen taps you on the shoulder, doesn't that kind of make you like a knight? Like, I feel like you just got like, I don't know, inducted as royalty.
You said it, not me. I felt like if I said it, it wasn't as humble. So I'm glad you said it. So thank you. Thank you. I hope everybody heard. Yeah.
Right. Listen, I from here on, you shall be known as, well, I don't know. I know they call knights sir. What do they call women? I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to figure it out.
Whatever it is, of the Royal Beyonce Order, okay?
Yes.
Of the Royal Queen
And
Order.
I have the video to prove it.
To prove it. Hadley, thank you so much for spending time with us, for sharing your story, for being an encouragement, for helping empower us to know that we can share our own stories, for getting young people out to vote, for everything that you are doing. And by the way, folks, I met Hadley at an event for Amendment 4 in Florida. So she was working back then in May, had just graduated from college, and already was trying to help us here in Florida exercise our freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. Hadley, thank you so much for sharing space with us tonight. It was such a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Well, folks, that's our guest, Hadley. I told you were going to enjoy it. I told you she's dynamic and dear and darling and all of those things. And you can see why, just upon meeting her, I was instantly drawn in by her authenticity, by her willingness to just be brave and vulnerable and tell it like it is, and to walk in her own strength. I feel like that gives us strength to walk in our truth and our stories and to make our voices heard. We covered so much great information tonight about Amendment 4, so I hope that you will take it to heart. And I hope that you will take some of those tips that she shared about how to speak with voters who may be undecided, how to speak with young people about the election, because we certainly have a big job to do between now and November 5th. But as I mentioned before, I believe in change. I believe in change. I'm going to work for change. I know there are so many out there of you who are working for change, and just know that I'll be fighting alongside you every step of the way. So here are your calls to action. Florida voters, you still have 2 days to enroll and vote by mail, 2 days to request your vote by mail ballot. And I will tell you, based on what just happened with back-to-back hurricanes, you never know how life can get disrupted. So please go ahead and get your vote by mail ballot. Let that be your insurance policy. If you like to early vote, guess what? You can take that ballot with you to an early voting location and drop it off there. But we want to make sure that your voice and your vote are counted. So if you want to request that vote by mail ballot, you got 2 days to do it. Make sure you research your ballot and make a detailed plan to vote. This ballot is long, y'all. I'm going to be honest. Like there's you got top of the ticket, you got down ballot. We need you to vote down ballot, and then you have 6 constitutional amendments. Plus, depending on where you are, if you're in Hillsborough County like me, you've got local referenda to consider as well. So make sure you take the time to research the ballot so that you can be prepared. That's also one of the great things about having a vote by mail ballot in the comfort of your own home. You can sit in front of your laptop, you can have a cup of tea like me, you can do your research, you can fill out your ballot and feel confident as you do it. Make sure you think about the date, the time, the location of where you're going to vote, the transportation that you might need to get there, and know that there are typically all kinds of resources to help you get to the polls. Sometimes Uber and Lyft even offer free rides, so keep an eye out for that information. Know that voting is the most important thing you can do this election cycle. The most important thing. Yes, the social media posts are great and the one-on-one conversations are awesome, but make sure that you don't miss your opportunity to have your voice heard. And then the last thing is that you can volunteer with a campaign to make calls, to talk to your neighbors by knocking doors. I know at our campaign, we love having volunteers come with us. I promise you, I'm a very fun canvasser. So if you want to come out and volunteer with our campaign, I can show you the ropes. We always have snacks. It's a great thing to do. And we try to turn out the vote to make sure that people are having their voices heard. So thank you so much for tuning in. I wish you all a wonderful week. Until next time, everybody take care. Bye.